Well, it's different. At least it's not called Vengeance Rising Aftermath or whatever. I don't know if it's an improvement. V Rising sounds more like ER Doctor shorthand for some malady of the female reproductive organs. In truth, V Rising is a base-building crafting action RPG sort of affair, but rather than being the usual hapless schlub in leaf pants going about smacking trees and rocks, you're a cool and dangerous vampire warrior going about smacking trees and rocks. I like the way our character continues doing their cool, swishy attack combos with cape fluttering dramatically as they cut down trees. Nice commitment to the bit. V Rising employs an overhead camera, giving the action RPG bits of sort of a Diablo-y feel, and the base-building bits an aura of The Sims, the whole effect being akin to an updated version of the first Legacy of Kain game, but where Kain splits his time equally between bloody revenge upon the living and landscape gardening. The story of Elevated Vagina is, to put it diplomatically, clearly geared for the attention deficit. One cutscene at the start and that's your lot. Hey, vampires used to rule, now they drool, humans run the world, now you're a vampire, do something about it, I guess. Then you wake up in a cemetery with nothing but your dad's old trousers and a crafting recipe for a pointy stick. Feel like adding a bit more context to this game? Piss off and punch some trees, bitch. I'm not Anne fucking Rice. Not that the game is without direction. The various mechanics are dribbled in through a series of mandatory quests. Craft pointy stick, beat wolf to death, clean fragments of wolf skull off your tights, Christ, you're a natural. We're thankfully spared having to scarf down water and wolf guts to keep hunger and thirst meters topped up, but as a vampire we do need to drink blood, which is an interesting curveball. Different blood has different qualities, but it keeps running out. You might find a virgin kickboxing instructor whose blood gives you 50% extra damage and regeneration, but then you use it all up, taking a few too many hits and have to scurry home on 2 crack addicts and a dead caterpillar. Anyway, we get handheld through our first few ventures into a countryside dotted with bandit camps and a startling amount of unclaimed real estate, on which we construct a base, making do with wooden barriers and magical mist generators, before we can start taking refuge from the sun with anything as technologically sophisticated as a ceiling. And once we're settled, the game unveils our actual goal. Broadly speaking, we need to gather some V-blood. Ew, I didn't realise we were that kind of vampire. We're using a cunnilingus-based gathering method or just looking for used sanitary products to dip in hot water like tea bags. Not that kind of V-blood. The V stands for very important or something. You have to hunt down unique boss characters scattered across the map because their blood will bestow upon you sacred knowledge, like how to cast certain spells, build smelting plants and trim the hedges. You just have to make sure you're sufficiently upgraded to take on the bosses, and that's determined entirely by gear score, which is one of the things that turns me off tech tree crafty RPGs. In the traditional RPG model, you at least know that you're always gaining XP, even if you've just spent the last 3 hours slaughtering farmyard cows out of some vague sense of underlying hostility. But in Fanny Flaps Ascending, you could systematically murder the entire population of Wolverhampton and make zero fucking progress, because none of them dropped the wool thread required to craft your next underpants upgrade. So you've officially achieved bugger all, besides freeing up some seating at the next Wanderers FC home game. But once you have stitched together some competitively rated long johns, the boss fights are probably the highlight of the game. How can they not be? Everything else is copy-pasted bandit camps and picking out your preferred style of drapes while you wait for the copper to finish smelting. The bosses are all unique characters with flamboyant personalities and voice lines. You'd almost think they'd been led to believe they were in a game with a plot. It's like butchering your way through the entire cast of a hero shooter. And the combat mainly avoids becoming a Diablo-style clickfest of attrition. It rewards more complex tactics like waiting for an opening and getting out of the way of things. Although having said that, a 5-second cooldown on the dodge move is a bit much. What, you need to iron your cape between each one? Oh, how interesting. I cracked the top of this creme brulee of complaints about V Rising, and I'm noticing now it's about 3 feet deep. 2 spell slots? There's like 19 fucking skill trees for magic, and I can only equip 2 spells, so I go to all the trouble of killing a boss, and all I get is a token to spend on ice magic, which is a fat lot of good to me when I'm currently maining Fireball and Manifest Sexy Blancmange. Gosh, this is a tasty creme brulee. Let's keep going. I got stuck at one point because the critical path mission was to build and use a teleporter, which felt like a critical step. A teleporter on base would be handy, much better than having to transport your castle every time you start a new area. And when I say transport, I mean painstakingly rebuild grid square by grid square, which really felt like the kind of thing a vampire lord would have an Igor around for. Building the teleporter was easy, but when I tried to use it, the game went, you cannot teleport while carrying certain items. Okay, well I'm currently carrying 9 kinds of rock, 6 different plants and a fish skeleton. You want to be more specific? Nope, just hover over everything and we'll tell you what you can't have. I ain't got time for that much hovering. I'm not a Californian parent. Yes, yeah, alright, technically I am. I consulted with colleagues and was informed that I can disable teleport restrictions in the world settings, so I did get around that. Incidentally, this is a game intended for online multiplayer, but I was stubbornly playing single player as always, because if I wanted to be bullied by vampire nerds in inexpensive leather outfits, I'd hang out at the mall. And as I progressed, the game took a rather severe dip in pace in the second act when all the recipes start calling for iron, which takes fucking forever to smelt. But the real problem was the aforementioned wool thread. I couldn't manufacture that at all. My loom refused to, because I hadn't yet found tailor's shop floor to put it on. You prissy little bitch, loom. Sorry all my floors are a touch too heterosexual for your taste. Sorry, that was uncalled for. So I thought, I know, I'll just buy some thread from the local human merchants with those quaint little copper discs they like so much. I'd done so easily enough in the previous area. Unfortunately, the merchants in the new area were in the middle of a human town, and none of them would do business with me because I'd just murdered all the gate guards right in front of them. I tried to casually walk in with my weapons sheathed, don't mind me lads, just doing some shopping, and they all just started screaming, "Vampire, vampire," and setting their own town on fire. I did find some sheep, but all they dropped was hide. Apparently the connection between sheep and wool wasn't covered in the vampire induction process, and that's the point I lost patience with V Rising and spent the rest of the week reviewing my toenail clippers. 2 stars, maybe 2.5 of the emery board attachment. Hello, I felt like doing another From the Heart Over the Credits voice, because I need to vent about the really sodding stressful weekend I had fixing up bugs in my new game, Starstruck Vagabond, out now on Steam. I tell you, it's great that as a solo-developed indie game with a low file size, any bug can be fixed and the build updated inside 10 minutes, but you balance that with not having the chance to get nearly enough QA done. Anyway, if you were holding out, pretty much all the major bugs are squashed now. Why not buy it if you like chill-out time-killer post-ad games with epic sci-fi plots? And if you want to support me and or Second Wind making the content you love, and you're allergic to Patreon or something.